Whenever we're asked to consider bounds on a question like this, which would appear towards the end of the exam paper, we need to consider all the possible options. First of all, to work out S, I'm not going to divide t divided by m. I need to work out what the upper and lower bound of t and m are. So, because t is 13.7, now the number I always consider before this is 13.6, and the number after this is 13.8. I can use this to work out that my lower bound between these numbers would be 13.65 and my upper bound would be 13.75. Now looking at m currently is exactly 3.184. Let's consider the number after this, that would be 3.185, and the number before this, that would be 3.183. So to work out my lower and upper bounds, the number between 3.183 and 3.184 would be 3.1835, and the upper bound between 3.184 and 3.185 would be 3.1845. I've now got my lower and upper bound for m and t, and I'm going to use these to work out what s could be. So s could be t divided by m, and we could do that by working out the upper bound of t divided by the upper bound of m. But s could also be the upper bound of t divided by the lower bound of m. It could also be the lower bound of t divided by the upper bound of m. Or finally, s could be the lower bound of t divided by the lower bound of m. They're the four options I need to consider. Let's now put in the numbers that correspond with these calculations. So, first of all, the lower bound of, let's start actually with this one here, the upper bounds. The upper bound of t was 13.75 divided by the upper bound of m, which is 3.1845. And when putting this into my calculator, I get an answer for this of 4.317789, and so on. Okay, so the upper bound for t was 13.75, and the lower bound of m was 3.1835. When I put these into my calculator, this time I get an answer of 4.319145, etc. Okay, let's now consider the third option, the lower bound of t. That would be 13.65 divided by the upper bound of m. That would be 3.1845. And on the calculator, this gives me an answer of 4.286387, and so on. Finally, my last option, the lower bound divided by the lower bound, this would be 13.65 divided by 3.1835, and this on the calculator gives me an answer of 4.287733, and so on. It's asked me to calculate the upper and lower bound of s. Well, if I look at these four answers, these are the four extreme answers that my actual answer could be. So the overall upper bound is this answer here. This is my upper bound. This is the maximum value, and I know these are all the extremes, and that is my maximum extreme. And my lowest extreme is this one. This is my lower bound. If the question asks me just to work out S to an appropriate degree of accuracy, what my answer would be is that S would be 4.3 because that's what all of the answers round to. Okay, very similar approach now for you to try on this next question. Have a go here and pause before you see the answer. Start by working out your upper and lower bound of D and F. Now we've got the lower and upper bound for D and F. Let's write down the 4 possible calculations that it could be. Substitute in your values into all 4 options. Use the calculator to work out all 4 scenarios. Now this question doesn't ask you to work out the overall upper bound or the overall lower bound. What it asks me to do is to work out C to a suitable degree of accuracy. Well, all of these answers, and particularly the biggest, which is this one, and the smallest, but they all round to 3.6. So therefore I can conclude that C equals 3.6 to 1 decimal place. And it asked me to write down a reason for this, and that's because all possible scenarios round to 3.6. And hopefully you can just see that that's written in the corner.